Have you ever wondered why God, who created paradise, would allow Satan, the very essence of evil, into Eden? What if the answer challenges everything you thought you knew about good, evil, and free will itself? True faith isn't the absence of doubt, it's believing despite the presence of temptation. Jonathan Edwards. Since childhood, we've heard the story of Adam and Eve and their fateful choice in the Garden of Eden, a moment that changed humanity forever. But there's one mystery often overlooked, perhaps deliberately avoided. Why did God permit Satan, the deceiver, to enter Eden at all? Could an all-knowing, all-powerful creator not foresee the destruction this would cause? The Garden of Eden symbolizes perfection, harmony, and innocence. It was meant to be the ultimate expression of God's love for humanity. Yet the serpent, often identified as Satan, was allowed to approach Eve, tempting her into the very act that would shatter paradise and introduce sin into the world. Today, we'll explore this deeply controversial and profoundly significant question. Was Eden's serpent merely an intruder, or was its presence intentional, part of a divine plan that most dare not discuss openly? By examining biblical scripture, historical interpretations, and contemporary spiritual insights, we'll uncover surprising revelations about the purpose of temptation, the meaning of free will, and why, perhaps, God's greatest test required the presence of evil itself. Together, we'll dive into Genesis, Job, Isaiah, and Revelation, unpacking centuries of theological debate. We'll consider whether Eden was designed not only as humanity's cradle, but as its proving ground, preparing mankind spiritually for an even greater destiny. This journey isn't just historical or theological, it's personal. By understanding why temptation existed from the very beginning, we can better grasp our own spiritual battles, making sense of struggles we face every day. Maybe the story of Eden isn't about failure, but about a divine lesson humanity is still learning. When we revisit the Garden of Eden, we find more than a simple tale of innocence lost. We discover a profound lesson about the very nature of freedom itself. Consider this. Why would a loving God plant a tree whose fruit could condemn humanity and allow Satan access to influence that choice? First, let's clarify the biblical context. In Genesis 2:16-17, God explicitly commands Adam, "You may freely eat of every tree in the garden, but of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil you shall not eat, for in the day that you eat of it, you shall surely die." This is the cornerstone of humanity's moral choice. Notice the critical word here, freely. God granted Adam and Eve complete freedom, not as a mere gesture, but as a fundamental necessity for genuine love and obedience. Without the option to choose otherwise, obedience holds no meaning. If God had blocked the serpent, restrained Eve, or removed the forbidden fruit altogether, human beings would remain forever in spiritual infancy, obedient by default, never truly free. But real love, as God designed, must include the potential for rejection. Therefore, the serpent's temptation in Eden was not a divine oversight. It was integral to God's ultimate purpose. To illustrate this, consider Job, a man whose faith was tested by God through Satan's actions. In Job 1:12, God explicitly permits Satan to test Job's righteousness, saying, "Behold, all that he has is in your power, only do not lay a hand on his person." God allows temptation not to harm, but to validate and deepen faith. Job emerges spiritually stronger precisely because he faced temptation directly. Connecting this to Eden, we see a parallel pattern. Temptation is permitted to strengthen humanity's relationship with God through choice, trust, and spiritual growth. Rather than a failure, Eden's test can be viewed as the necessary catalyst for spiritual maturity. Adam and Eve's story symbolizes humanity's perpetual journey. Every generation faces Eden's test anew. temptation, and the freedom to choose obedience. But why specifically Satan? Why allow evil itself into paradise? The Bible portrays Satan not merely as God's enemy, but as part of a larger divine narrative. Satan's presence in Eden reveals God's broader cosmic plan, demonstrating that even evil, intended for harm, ultimately serves God's greater purpose. Isaiah 45:7 challenges conventional perspectives. I form the light and create darkness. I make peace and create calamity. I, the Lord, do all these things. While God is never the author of sin, he permits its presence, allowing evil to sharpen and refine humanity's spiritual journey. In our modern world, especially as we reflect on the turbulence of recent years leading up to 2025, this message resonates more powerfully than ever. Each of us faces a version of Eden's serpent, a choice between easy compromise and courageous faith. The presence of temptation isn't proof of God's neglect, it's evidence of his profound respect for our freedom, dignity, and spiritual growth. Next, we'll venture deeper into the controversial interpretation of Eden's purpose, uncovering connections between ancient prophecies and modern-day struggles. Could understanding Eden reshape how you face life's greatest challenges today? When we see Eden not merely as paradise lost, but as a spiritual blueprint for humanity, we uncover deeper truths that can transform how we interpret our own lives. Eden's temptation wasn't just an isolated event, it set the stage for every human story thereafter. Biblical scholars have long debated this provocative idea. Was Eden intentionally designed to introduce humans to spiritual warfare, equipping them for a much greater divine mission? To grasp this, we must journey beyond Genesis into broader biblical narratives, especially those found in the New Testament. Consider the words of the Apostle Paul in Romans 5:3-4. We rejoice in our sufferings, knowing that suffering produces endurance, and endurance produces character, and character produces hope. Paul suggests something radical, that trials and temptations aren't just obstacles, they're divine tools intended for spiritual refinement. Eden, viewed through this lens, becomes not a story of tragic failure, but of purposeful preparation. Even Jesus Christ experienced this intentional testing. In Matthew 4, we witness Satan directly confronting Jesus in the wilderness, tempting him with power, wealth, and authority. Crucially, this encounter was no accident. Matthew 4:1 explicitly states, "Then Jesus was led by the Spirit into the wilderness to be tempted by the devil." It was the Spirit, not Satan, who initiated this confrontation. Jesus' temptation was an essential step in his earthly ministry, a spiritual battle that ultimately strengthened his resolve and identity. Connecting Jesus' temptation to Eden's narrative reveals a powerful spiritual principle. God doesn't shelter us from temptation because our spiritual strength and authenticity are forged precisely through it. Without Eden, humanity would never grasp the true meaning of choice, redemption, and divine purpose. This understanding becomes especially relevant today, as we navigate a rapidly changing world in 2025. Society increasingly grapples with complex moral dilemmas, ethical confusion, and spiritual crises. Many ask why evil and suffering persist if a loving God exists. Eden offers a profound, albeit challenging answer. Genuine spiritual growth, understanding, and meaningful relationship with God often emerge through struggle, choice, and even confrontation with evil. Historically, theologians like Augustine and Thomas Aquinas argued that God's greatest act of love was granting humanity genuine freedom, even knowing we might choose wrongly. This freedom, rooted in Eden's very soil, carries profound responsibility. Temptation invites each of us to define our spiritual identity and relationship with God in a deeply personal way. Today's generation faces its own Edenic moment. Technology, artificial intelligence, global unrest, and shifting moral frameworks present us with choices that echo Eden's ancient test. The serpent is no longer confined to an ancient garden. It manifests daily through screens, relationships, politics, and the subtle compromises we're tempted to accept. Yet within this challenge lies hope. The same divine purpose behind Eden's temptation guides each personal battle we face today, to teach us wisdom, deepen our compassion, and strengthen our spiritual resolve. Eden's test continues not as a punishment, but as an invitation to a higher spiritual calling. Next, we'll explore surprising modern-day implications of this ancient narrative. Could recognizing Eden's ongoing test empower you to face life's most challenging moments with renewed faith? If Eden represents the original spiritual battleground, then its lessons reverberate even louder in our contemporary lives. Today, in 2025, we're immersed in a complex and interconnected society where temptation is not only more subtle, but also more relentless than ever before. But what if Eden's ancient story is actually our story, replaying itself in every decision we make? Let's begin by acknowledging something crucial. Temptation isn't merely personal, it's societal, collective, and even global. The serpent no longer whispers from a single forbidden tree. It permeates our culture through media, politics, economics, and technology. Every day we face ethical crossroads, decisions where integrity conflicts with convenience and truth battles deception. The book of Revelation provides a fascinating parallel. Revelation 12:9 describes Satan as the ancient serpent, who leads the whole world astray. This imagery isn't accidental. It directly ties back to Eden, portraying a global influence of temptation designed to distort humanity's moral compass. What began as a simple test in paradise now unfolds across our entire civilization, intensified by technology that amplifies every choice and consequence. But here's the hidden truth. Just as temptation has escalated, so too has the opportunity for spiritual awakening. Eden's ancient narrative isn't merely about falling into sin, it's also about rising from it. Consider the concept of redemption through Christ. The greatest triumph of faith emerges precisely from humanity's darkest moments. As Paul writes in Romans 5:20, where sin increased, grace increased all the more. This isn't a call to passivity, but rather to intentional spiritual vigilance. Theologians increasingly emphasize that modern temptations aren't distractions, they're training grounds. Eden's serpent, now embodied in societal pressures, misinformation, moral compromise, and even technological dependency, is permitted by God to strengthen humanity's spiritual discernment and resilience. In other words, our current era, with all its complexity and moral ambiguity, is the very battlefield Eden anticipated. Reflect on your own experiences. How often do you face ethical dilemmas at work, home, or online? Have you ever sensed a deeper spiritual purpose behind these challenges? By recognizing the ongoing presence of Eden's serpent in contemporary life, we can actively participate in God's transformative process, converting temptation into triumph and spiritual strength. In 2025, we face unique challenges. Rapid technological advancement raises profound ethical questions. Artificial intelligence can manipulate truth, social media often feeds division, and global crises push us toward fear or apathy. Yet, hidden within these difficulties lies an extraordinary opportunity, the chance to choose love over hate, truth over deception, and faith over fear. Eden's story teaches that temptation isn't inherently destructive, it's revealing. It reveals our hearts, our priorities, and our spiritual condition. Without temptation, faith would remain superficial, untested, and ultimately weak. God's intent from Eden until today remains consistent: to mold humanity into spiritually mature, discerning, and loving beings who freely choose Him even amidst adversity. Next, we'll conclude our exploration by uncovering how embracing Eden's profound lesson can transform your spiritual journey in profound, practical ways. As we conclude our exploration into the profound mystery of Eden, let's reflect on what we've discovered. Eden was never merely about paradise lost or humanity's first failure. It was about the birth of genuine spiritual freedom, the divine gift of meaningful choice, and the powerful potential of redemption. Today, more clearly than ever before, we understand that the presence of temptation in Eden wasn't an oversight by God. It was a profound spiritual necessity. God allowed Satan into Eden not to punish humanity, but to empower us. Without temptation, there is no growth. Without struggle, no strength. Without choice, no real love. Consider again the life and teachings of Christ. In John 16:33, Jesus Himself declared, "In this world you will have trouble, but take heart, I have overcome the world." Jesus didn't promise a life without temptation or hardship. He promised victory through them. This victory is precisely what Eden foreshadowed. The serpent's presence then and now forces us to actively engage with our faith. Every day, through every temptation, we make decisions that shape our spiritual destiny. Each choice echoes Eden's eternal lesson. Obedience isn't real without the freedom to disobey, and love isn't genuine without the option to reject it. Eden's profound secret is that temptation is an opportunity, an invitation to spiritual depth and maturity. As we journey into the future, Eden's timeless lesson remains ever relevant. In 2025, our world is at a critical crossroads, spiritually, morally, and socially. Yet just as the fall of Eden carried within it the seeds of redemption, today's challenges present opportunities for extraordinary faith, courage, and transformation. You now stand at your personal Eden, a point of powerful spiritual choice. Will you embrace temptation as an opportunity for spiritual growth? Will you recognize the serpent's presence not with fear, but with wisdom, courage, and unwavering faith? In the end, God's greatest gift in Eden was not paradise itself. It was the gift of authentic freedom, the freedom to choose Him. This freedom still defines your spiritual journey. The battle first fought in Eden continues within your heart every single day. Recognizing this truth is your first step towards spiritual victory. If today's exploration moved you, inspired reflection, or brought clarity, consider liking, sharing, and subscribing to help spread this powerful message. We'd love to hear your thoughts. Do you feel this truth resonating within you now? The greatest glory of humanity isn't perfection, but the courage to choose good even in the presence of evil. C.S. Lewis. Thank you for joining us in uncovering Eden's forbidden explanation.